Yeah, hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Broman Class right here, and today is a very special day. Not only is it Saturday, but it's a Saturday that holds significance because today marks the 50th anniversary since the assassination of Mr. Malcolm X. Now, some of you may be asking, why are you doing something about Mr. Malcolm X? Because Mr. Malcolm X to me, he was a great man. He was up there with Martin Luther King. He was right there with Elijah Muhammad, Marcus Garvey, because he was doing something for his people. And some of you may argue and say that, hey, look, you can't compare him to Elijah Muhammad. I can understand you can't compare the student to the teacher, but the teacher sometimes wishes to be surpassed by the student to show that they have done something right. But then, to compare him to Marcus Garvey, especially when he was inspired by Garveyism, especially with his father. His father was a Garveyite. And if you understand Malcolm X, you first have to understand Marcus Garvey. But now, onward to the topic at hand, where it deals with the topic of the 50th anniversary since, Mr. Malcolm X's assassination, which, when I saw the Spike Lee film, Malcolm X, inspired by the autobiography, and looking at that and reading a little bit of that, I remember it harkened back to me back in 8th grade. But at the same time, looking at, even though it was just a movie, but looking at how the way Denzel Washington, who has the spitting image of Mr. Malcolm X, seeing him play as Mr. Malcolm X, seeing him get, even though it was acting and all that stuff, getting gunned down. I ain't gonna lie to you, it made me cry. And if a movie can do that, and then hearing, Mr. Ozzie Davis, he's with his wife right now. His wife, passed away a year ago. And, he did a eulogy for Malcolm X. And for him to do something so great and, to do something for a man who he described as a black shining example of assertive aggressive black manhood. He taught, and as Ozzie Davis once said, Malcolm X taught us how to be men. And some of you may say that, that's dealing with only from the black perspective, and that's true. Because at the same time, you have to deal with it from a perspective of, American. You have to deal with it from a historical perspective. You got to deal with it a perspective that it's like, hey, look, our people has been through a lot. But, it's real funny that our people would rather go party. Our people would rather go do all this other stuff on a day that holds very, very great significance. Because in 3 more years, that's going to mark the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's assassination. And why am I mentioning that? Because, death has a very impactful way of expressing love to some people. And that's just to me. Because, in death, you learn how to appreciate the life, the legacy of what they did. Malcolm X, to me, just like Ozzie Davis once said, he was a man. He taught us how to be men. He didn't teach us how to be, cowards. He didn't teach us how to run with our tail in between our legs. At first, I didn't get it because I was so young, but now that I'm a little bit older, I'm going to turn 20 in a month, in a few more weeks. And then looking at that, and then looking at how the way he had so much charisma, but he was humble enough, intelligent enough, and brave enough to say, no, this is what I'm going to talk about. And he stood up on his own 2 feet and said that. That gave me that made me look up to him highly. And some of you may say, Malcolm X is for violence. Malcolm X, he was a fanatic, a racist. And we should not even honor him. And and I'm going to say what Ozzy Davis once said as well. Have you ever talked, with Malcolm X? Have you ever got, sit next to him, have him look at you, smile at you? Because if you knew what he really stood for, you will understand why we must protect him. And if you knew him, then you will understand why he is very important. And just like what Ozzy Davis said again, he said, Malcolm X was our manhood, our black, shining manhood. And every time I listen to that eulogy, like after the second or third time, like I get used to it, but the first time it just hits me like, man, we really lost one of our leaders. And he a brilliant mind with no problems. Sure, he may have grew up, he grew up with a shaky past. He had run-ins with the law. He was out there doing shady things. But at the same time, he turned his life around. And he turned it for the best. So, in case you were trying to say that, oh, street life is there, street life, that's how it is. I ain't gonna change because what's the point of changing? Doing the right thing takes tremendous effort. And when I hear that, and it's just that it infuriates me, but at the same time, it makes me say, it's your life, but I don't want you to get hurt. Even if you say that you are fortified, secured, and all around protected, but you have to remember, even in the mightiest of all fortresses, there will always be a chink in there, to the point that if an opponent exploits that chink, your whole defenses go down. And then looking at Malcolm X, how the way America tries to slander his name. Malcolm X, to me, he is not a symbol of violence. He is a symbol of intelligence and self-defense. He's a symbol of aggression. He's a symbol of passion and aggression. If in case you're wondering why do I say aggression, because if you try to be peaceful but yet your opponent is aggressive and trying to kill you, being violent is not really violent if you're in self-defense, because you're either defending your own life or you're defending somebody else's life. That is not ignorance in any kind of way whatsoever. You want to know what the funny part is? Some of you actually act as if we forget our own history, we'll improve. You want to know what the real sad part is? As soon as we listen to those very same people that said, let's not learn, let's not, remember, let's not do anything, we end up screwing up. And how does this tie in, remember with Malcolm X? Because Malcolm X had to look back at what he did wrong and then say, I admit it, I did a lot of things wrong. Even though I can't change the past, but I can change myself now. He cleaned himself up. He taught himself. He was taught by one great man. And, he did great things. He gave inspiration to a particular generation, which was the best thing that anybody could ever do, especially if you are a teacher. See, Malcolm X, he's a teacher. Dr. King, he's a teacher. Marcus Garvey, he's a teacher. Every one of our black heroes, regardless of gender, is a hero and a teacher, because they taught us how to have courage. They're trying to censor out, this thing right here, TV, or the internet. They're trying to censor out, certain things, so we don't know much about ourselves or know much about the truth. See, look, in a nation of lies, the truth is the only sword that can actually take down the king. And now, let me translate that. If you are in a nation of lies, in a nation of wars, in a nation of one-sidedness, unity, truth, and peace are the three things that could literally unravel it or balance it. But how does this tie in with Malcolm X? Because Malcolm X, he stood for ideals that were actually truthful. He was, an honest man. He did not back out. He did not try to cower to the side. In fact, you know what he did? He said, you know what, man? Even though he didn't say the exact words, but, he said, you know what? Since you're willing to censor out my people, let me be the voice to speak. And I don't need your approval to do so. That's why people love him. Not because of what other people tell about him. Because if they find out what he was really about, you'll realize that, hey, he would not even sell out his own people. He would stand up. He would say, look, this is what we really need to do. But the problem is, Malcolm X, just like us, he's a man. And as soon as you forget what the man was saying, you forget the message. See, the messenger will die. That's the thing. The messenger will die, but the message will continue on. We should remember the message, but never forget the messenger. The messenger may have passed, and his accomplishments will never be forgotten. But at the same time, his message is the most important thing. Because without the message, how can a generation improve or progress? And the funny thing is the fact that, people don't even want to deal with history. They don't want to deal with any of the whole mystery. They don't want to deal with any of this. Because you want to know why? Because they are scared. They're scared to be isolated from their peers. But here's the thing. If you're born as an individual, why grow up with a city of clones? There's something beautiful about being an individual. Don't forget that. Everybody's not perfect. Everybody have some shameful moments. I know I do. I ain't gonna lie. And, nobody's, guiltless. Nobody is, and I have a better word, perfect. Nobody's perfect. But don't let that be an excuse for you to do nothing and then blame the world for your problems. Because you know what they say, if you blame the world for your problems, you essentially blame yourself. And then, Malcolm X, he did just that. He did not blame the world for his problems. He did not, well, he was under racism, so, there's that. There was a little bit of that, holding him back. But did he give up because of that? He did not. You want to know why he didn't give up because of that? Because he was too strong to give up. He was not weak. And just like what Ozzie Davis said, he is an Afro-American. He stopped being Negro a long time ago. And that's beautiful. And, when you remember that Ozzie Davis, Ruby D, both of them, rest their souls, they were there in the civil rights struggle. They were there in the activism. They were not afraid. They were up there speaking. In fact, Ozzie Davis was, like I said before, Ozzie Davis was the one who gave the eulogy because he personally knew Malcolm X. He talked with him. He spoke with him. He was not afraid. And for an image to go out towards the world to say that he was a fanatic, a racist, talking about white people are this, white people are that. Let me tell you something. Malcolm X was explaining what was going on with white supremacy, not with white people. And this is what he said. And some of you may take offense to this, but this is what he said. He said the government is to blame for your injustices. Don't blame a cracker in Georgia for your injustices. The government is to blame for your injustices. The government has to fix all this. Now, I understand that some of y'all say, well, why do you say cracker for it? I'm just quoting the exact same thing that he said. But if you take that and if you actually think about it, he's saying that don't blame a small group of people for following the law if the lawmakers are the ones that are causing the problem. That's what he's saying. So instead of looking at the racial rhetoric, look at the rhetoric that anybody can look at. The governmental rhetoric, the law rhetoric, the basically what's really going on. He was talking about the laws are broken. The laws are screwed. The laws are not right. He was talking about self-defense against crooked laws. He was talking about self-defense if your life is in danger. He was talking about to stay intelligent, even if everybody is against you. Because as soon as you fall for the trap and follow everybody else, that's it. You lose your individuality. And then, listening to that, looking at how the way he carried himself. He carried himself like a man. He was a great family man, greatly outspoken. And, I don't want you to think like look, it's not in a same sex, erotic way, like I don't have that kind of feelings for the man, but I admire him. I can say truly that for what he has done, for what he did for our people, for the people, for the Africans here in America who have, forgotten their own names, because their names were ripped from them. And then, listening to that, and then, just, I have nothing but love for the man. And no, it's not that kind of love, like in the bed and all that crap. None of that. Get that out of your head. It's respect, showing like, I love the man because I respect what he does. Because he was assertive, not afraid, uncompromising, and he was definitely not an Uncle Tom. He spoke what he had to say. And he said it with no regrets, even up to the day that he was, brutally murdered. Assassinated if you want to be, more classified, if you want to be classy. But, looking at Malcolm X, looking at the legacy is more important because he taught us something. Like I said before, and just like what Ozzie Davis once said before, he said that, Malcolm X taught us how to be men. And what about, women, black women? The reason why black women, see, look, let me tell you something. No matter which way you see it, women, men, man, human, it's not talking about gender. It's talking about a person. Let me get that cleared up. We're talking about people regardless of gender. They need to stand up for themselves. And if you keep on bringing your hand out expecting people to feed you, eventually you might just get nothing. And then you have to do for self. Even if people will hate you for it. If you see your family happy, don't do anything illegal. That's not what I'm trying to say. But if you see your family being happy, you see something, something good come out of it. You see that, hey, you're not hurting anybody, you're not raping, killing, pillaging anybody, you're not doing anything wrong. You realize that, hey, this is good. My family's happy, everybody's safe, I'm not doing anything wrong. This is beautiful. But, Malcolm X, he stood for something. Like I said before, he stood for greater things. He's a great man. with a great heart. I respect him dearly. And, never afraid to speak his mind. And never afraid to correct people. Because some people rather change up the whole thing and say, oh, this is what we're trying to say. Especially when the rhetoric has been said long ago and it's still being reflected to this day. The physical, though, is significantly toned down, but the mental is still going on. But that's the thing, people think Malcolm X is all for violence. He is not all for violence. Let's not get that, all flipped up right here. Because Malcolm X, like I said, he was a man, a respectable, great man. And I respect him, love him, greatly admire him. And I'm not a fan of his. Don't get that. I'm not like a fanatic of Malcolm X. But he stood up for self-defense, intelligence, and being assertive. Standing on your own 2 feet and not taking any shit from anybody. And, that's respectable. And I respect him for that. But, with all that aside, Malcolm X, love you. Dr. King, love you. Marcus Garvey, love you. We all love you, man. This is coming from me on to you. Hope y'all rest in the great heavens, because your contributions will not be wasted, and they will definitely not go in vain. And with that, YouTube, I just gotta say, this is Burman Clash right here saying I won, and I hope y'all have a great evening. Later out, and if you like, just keep watching me, and you might see something new. Okay, later.